In today's video, we're gonna see the tutorial of Canon 5D Classic camera. You can see 5D over here, and this is the first edition of Canon 5D camera. This is a classic camera, and this camera does only photos, 13 megapixel photos, and no video. So this is how it looks like. It's a really nice camera, takes really nice images. Let me show you an overview of this camera. So over here we have the card slot, and it has a CF card, compact flash card, not the SD card. Okay, and then on the back you have this dial using which you can adjust your shutter speed or aperture or other settings, and you have these buttons to select the focus point, and then it has a fixed screen and it's not a touch screen, and over here you have the buttons for the menu and all. And from the top it looks like this. So you have a top LCD screen. So in this screen you can see all your settings, and you also have a dial over here to adjust your shutter speed, aperture, and then you also have these buttons to adjust your white balance, ISO, drive mode, metering, and exposure compensation. And then you have a dial. And on this side you have this dial to select your photo mode. So on the top you can see you have this top LCD screen where you can see all your settings. So you can see your shutter speed, metering mode, focus mode, everything over here, and you also have these buttons. So these are like dual buttons. This one works for autofocus and white balance, second one drive mode and ISO, metering and exposure compensation. Then you also have this dial over here, and on this side you have this dial to select your photo mode. All right, so let's get started with the tutorial. And after watching this tutorial you would definitely know how to use this great camera. If you are new to my channel, consider subscribing it, and don't forget to press the notification icon. So I'm gonna put this camera on the M mode. M is the fully manual mode. So in the fully manual mode, I'm gonna select the shutter speed and the aperture and ISO and everything. So let me show you how to set these values. Before I do that, this is a very interesting button. Let me focus over there. So you can see you have this on off switch, and then you also have this line over here. So right now the camera is in off mode, now it is in on mode. But when this camera is at on and you are rotating this dial to select the aperture value, it will not work. It has to be on this line after the on, only then you will be able to adjust your aperture. So let me show you how you adjust your shutter speed and aperture on this camera. So on the top we can see all the settings. So in order to select the shutter speed, I will rotate this dial. So you can see this value is changing. So right now I'm using this 50mm lens. So I'm gonna select a shutter speed of 50. That will give me a sharp looking photo. And here you can see the value of the aperture. So when we rotate this dial, so you will see the aperture value is changing. See, this value is changing. So I'm gonna set it to 1.8. I'm using this 50mm f1.8 lens. So next thing is ISO, and on this camera you cannot change the value of ISO to auto ISO. So you have to select the ISO value every time depending on whatever the lighting situation looks like. And to change the value of the ISO, you can see you have this drive and ISO button. So this every button of so each and every button over here works for like two different functions. So when you select this button, for example drive ISO, and when I rotate this dial, the top dial, so it will activate drive. But when I press this and I rotate the dial at the back, then it will activate the second option. So to change the value of the ISO, I have to press this button and then rotate the dial at the back. So this camera goes up to 1600 ISO. So for now I will try with maybe 400 ISO, and then we will see if the exposure is correct or not. If it is too dark, then we would raise the ISO value. Yeah, one more thing, the focus mode, very important. So to select the focus mode, you have to press this button. Since AF is the first option over here, so you press this and then rotate this dial. So you can see over here AI servo, one shot, and AI focus. So if you want to take really nice looking sharp photos, I would say select one shot mode. Then the focus point, where you want your focus point to be. So for that you will have to press this button, okay, this button and the top dial. So I'm gonna press this, and then you can see this line. This camera has 9 autofocus point. So this line you can see is moving. So this camera can have 9 autofocus point. So right now this is in autofocus mode. So camera is going to decide where it wants its autofocus to be. But that is not what we want. We want to take nice control of our camera and put our focus point where we want. So right now the focus point is in center. Now it's in top corner. Now it's in corner. Okay, so this is how you can change your focus point depending on where you want to put it. So for now I am gonna put it in center, but you can change it to wherever you want. If your subject is in the corner, you can put it in the corner. So now I am gonna take a photo of a guitar that is lying in front. I have put the guitar on a chair in the front. So let me see how the photo looks like. Let me show you the photo, how it looks like. So the photo, in my opinion, is slightly brighter. So I'm gonna reduce the value of the ISO slightly. So I go back over here again, this one, and then instead of 400, let's go for 250 and see how the photo is gonna look like. So this time the photo looks perfectly exposed, and it's a really nice sharp looking photo. So this is how the fully manual mode works. Now let's jump into the second option. So now we are in the AV mode. So AV mode means aperture value mode. So in the aperture value mode or the aperture priority mode, you're gonna adjust only the aperture, and the shutter speed gonna be decided by the camera. So let's see how we gonna adjust the aperture. So to adjust the aperture, just rotate this dial. So see, this value is changing, 2.8, 3.5. okay, so for now let's go with f2 value. Okay, so now the aperture is 2.0 and the shutter speed the camera is deciding is 400. So this is all we need to do, and let's see how the photo is gonna be like. So in this case, the photo is a little bit dark because camera decided a really high shutter speed of 400, which in my opinion is not needed. I think a shutter speed of 50 would have been good enough to give me a nice looking photo. So that is one downside with this camera if you are using aperture priority or AV mode. I would say if you are using this camera, always use it always use this camera in fully manual mode to get great results. Always use this camera in fully manual mode if you want to get great results. So but in this case, since the photo is dark, so I would have to raise the ISO value. So I'm gonna raise the ISO value to, let's say, 800, and now we're gonna fire a shot and see how the photo gonna be like. So still the photo is a bit dark. So this camera is actually not so good when it comes to aperture priority mode, AV and TV mode. Okay, this time it is a little bit better but not so good, and I cannot raise the ISO further because it goes only up to 1600. But this is how it is. Let's go to the other option. Now we're gonna select TV. TV means time value or shutter priority in case of Nikon and Sony. So if I want to change the shutter speed, I can rotate this dial. So I'm gonna select a shutter speed of 50. So let's see how the photo is gonna be like. And this time the camera is gonna decide the aperture value, but camera is deciding a aperture value of 14, which is too high. I mean, it should not be deciding such a high value. Let me lower the ISO and then see if the aperture value decided is better or not. Okay, now it is deciding aperture value of 8. Let's see how the photo is gonna be like. Okay, the photo is still a bit dark. So this camera is not made for TV or AV mode. Always use this camera in M mode if you want to take great photos, as you can already see with the photos that we have taken. Now let me tell you about some of the other settings that you can adjust on this camera while you are taking photos. So over here you can see autofocus and white balance. We have already seen AF mode, but the white balance we haven't seen. So basically white balance decides so basically what white balance does is it tries to keep white things white in your photo. So to change the white balance, you can press this and the dial at the back. So you can see those small icons over here. Try to see these icons. Okay. So this first option, AWB, it is auto white balance. So in this case, camera is gonna decide whatever the white balance is gonna be. Okay, and then this is for the sun. If you are shooting in sun, then you can select this. This is for shade. This is for clouds. This is for like the tungsten lighting, the yellow lighting. This is for the fluorescent lighting, the white lighting. And this is for the flash. This is like a custom value you can define yourself, and over here you can set your Kelvin value as well. If you are a beginner, you can keep this camera on AWB auto white balance. Now the drive and ISO we have already seen. Let's see the drive mode. So what drive mode means is that how you want to use your camera, whether you want to take single photo, multiple photos, you want to have it on self timer, or you want to use the remote. So we press this, and now this dial, the first dial. So over here you can see So this is the single shooting. So this is like the most typical scenario. If you are using the single shooting, if you press the shutter button once, so it's gonna take only one photo. Now this is the continuous mode. So this camera can do like 3 frames per second photos. So if you have the shutter button press, it will take like 3 photos in a second. And the next one is the self timer. So we have only these 3 options in this drive mode. So I'm gonna put it in single shooting mode. So the next one is the metering and exposure compensation. So let's look at the metering. So we press this. So we have 3 options. The spot metering, see this dot, this one, this small dot, this is the spot metering. This is the center weighted metering. This is the partial metering, and this is the spot metering. So we have only 3 metering modes. So if you are doing some kind of a portrait photography, I would say use the spot metering, this one. And if you are doing like a landscape photography, use this one, which is like the matrix metering. And then if you are using, and if your objects are in center, you can use this one. This looks like center weighted metering. For portrait photography, the spot metering, this small dot, would be a better choice. Now the second option, so this one means exposure compensation. So exposure compensation means if you have taken a photo and the photo has come out to be too dark or too bright, so then what you can do is you can adjust it using the exposure compensation. So let's look at the previous example. When we were using this AV mode, the photo was a bit too dark even though we had a really high ISO value. So what we could do in that case is we can increase the exposure compensation so that we get a nice looking exposure. So let's see how we can do it. So we have to press this button, and then at the back we have to rotate this dial. But one more trick I can tell you, if you are in AV mode or TV mode, you don't even have to press this button. If you just rotate this dial, it will automatically change the exposure compensation, but this will work only in AV and TV mode. See, just look at this arrow. Look at this arrow, this value is changing. Okay, so since the photo was a bit too dark, so I'm gonna move this towards the positive side so that I get a better exposure. You can do the same by pressing this and then rotating the dial at the back. See, I can do it this way as well. So now I'm gonna take a photo. I have a shutter speed of 125. It is giving me an f2 aperture, so I'm getting a better shutter speed. Earlier it was using a shutter speed of around 400. So if I raise the exposure compensation even bit, so now it gives me a shutter speed of 80 and 2.0 aperture. So let's take a photo and see how the photo is gonna be like. So this time the photo was a bit too bright. So I'm gonna decrease the exposure compensation and then take another photo. So I can adjust the exposure compensation using this dial as well. So this time it's a perfectly exposed photo. So this is how you use the exposure compensation. So now the last bit, let's dive into the menu system. Then On this camera, the menu system is very simple and very small. It do not have too many options, which in my opinion is a good thing because it makes this camera really very simple to use. So to go into the menu, you just press this button. So now you can see the menu system. So to go into the menu, you have to press this menu button. So now you can see all the menus. So this are the options over here. The first one is an important one, so the quality. So the quality determines what kind of images you want to shoot with the camera. Do you want a raw image, or do you want raw image or a JPEG image? So if you select one of those, so these are the JPEG. So if you select the first one, it will give you maximum quality JPEG image. But if you select one of these, so this will give you a raw image plus maximum size photo with JPEG. But if you select just raw, then you're gonna get only raw image. But then you're gonna need a image. But then you're gonna need an image editor to process those raw files. So I'm gonna put it on large JPEG. So to navigate in the menu, you just rotate this dial and then you can see all these options. So it's like one really big large menu. In the new Canon camera, we have a better menu system because they have like different they have like different tabs, and they have segmented and segregated different options into different tabs. So this is how this camera menu looks like. So you can find all the important settings in this, like if you want to change the language, you want to adjust the brightness of your monitor, or if you want to format the camera. Hello. Alright then, so this was a really short tutorial of this camera. I hope you liked the tutorial. If you liked it, leave a comment. So this was a really short tutorial of this camera. I hope you liked the video. If you really liked it, leave a comment, like the video, share it possibly, and if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, subscribe to the channel and don't forget to press the notification icon. So this was a really short tutorial of this camera. I hope you liked it. If you have watched this entire tutorial, I'm sure you're gonna learn a lot on how to use this camera to take better photos. I would be happy if you shared the video, leave a comment, like the video, and if you haven't subscribed to the channel, subscribe to the channel and don't forget to press the notification icon.